I remember the first time I saw Catherine, a high school day in warm spring. Her striking red hair and vibrant green eyes immediately caught my attention. Little did I know, that day would start a journey spanning decades. We became inseparable, exploring life together through high school dances and summer jobs. As we grew older, our bond strengthened. Despite the challenges of young love, our connection remained unbreakable. Catherine's fiery spirit and determination deeply impressed me. By 16, our friendship blossomed into something deeper. We shared dreams, fears, and aspirations, building a partnership based on trust and respect. By graduation, we were already planning our future together. In the past 3 months, especially the last one, Catherine hadn't felt like studying with me. Our most recent argument happened last night, and her behavior had worn me out. Known for her fierce temper and grudges, Catherine was always strong-willed. Born Catherine O'Brien, she now went by Catherine McCarthy, never Kate or Katie. Early in our relationship, I tried calling her Kat, and she made it clear she didn't like it. I'm Kurt McCarthy, her husband. We've been together since high school, dating since 16. I learned to steer clear during her tirades, and it's been like that for 26 years, with 22 as husband and wife. Despite her temper, I loved everything about her. We were each other's first boyfriend and girlfriend and shared our first kiss. Early in our dating life, Catherine declared she wanted to be a maid on her wedding day, which I respected. Today, like many times before, she said, "I like the way you do it." This time, though, it felt different. Afterward, I got up to shower, knowing I had to be quick to get there first. As the water streamed down, I pondered her words. She had said them countless times, but now they bothered me. Our relationship had been strained recently, and I wasn't sure why. Usually her moods lasted a week or 10 days, never a whole month. I finished my shower and told her it was her turn. She groaned, but got up and headed to the bathroom. In the first year of marriage, we couldn't get enough of each other, even during our jobs as a mechanic and a Target worker. Those were our poor but deeply in love days. I worked as a mechanic until about age 28, when a local Napa franchise owner offered me a management position. He liked my car knowledge and customer skills. One night, he took me out to discuss business opportunities, offering to train me and eventually sell the franchise to me. The deal was, I'd earn the same $40,000 a year for 10 years, and he'd save $20,000 annually for my down payment. We sealed it with a handshake, and I gave 2 weeks' notice to start working for him. This job allowed flexibility to attend my kids' sports games, but required nights and weekends. When I told Catherine about the new job, she was furious I hadn't discussed it with her first, especially since nothing was in writing. I explained it would let me be more present for our kids and would benefit us all in the long run. She didn't want to hear anything and ignored me for over a week. I hoped my plan wouldn't work out because I dreaded facing Catherine's wrath, which I had experienced many times before, on camping trips, birthdays, and vacations. 8 years later, I looked forward to surprising her after just 2 years. However, the lack of pay raises over the years led to heated arguments. I told her to trust me, which was hard for her. My schedule changed from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. as a mechanic to a flexible 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the week and some weekends. This allowed me to attend my kids' baseball, softball, and soccer games. About 2 years ago, I noticed a change in Catherine. Her short temper grew worse, and she began belittling me, hurting my ego and causing resentment. The past 3 months have been particularly bad. Attempts to talk helped briefly, but then things would get worse again. Mentioning it now only annoys her more. This tension affected our home life. I preferred working to being home with her. Meanwhile, our business grew to 4 locations with a steady commercial growth. Catherine, always a hard worker, returned to work soon after our kids were born, and now manages an insurance office. I know managing people is stressful, which might explain her attitude. When I asked her what had changed, she had no answer and got angry. As I dressed for housework, I remembered the gorgeous morning but couldn't shake a nagging feeling. "I like the way you do it," she had said, but it bothered me now. The rest of the week, things went back to her irritable normal. On Friday, she came home late and demanded attention in the bedroom, which angered me. She said, "I need you to cater to me." I replied, "I don't jump on your command. You can service yourself." I slept in my son Kevin's room. When I went to get clothes, I saw a text on her phone from CB asking, "So did he do it?" I felt sick. "I like the way you do it," she had said differently, emphasizing you as if comparing me to someone. She had no one to compare me to, or did she? I threw up and Catherine asked if I was okay. I told her I felt nauseous and needed time to think. She asked if I ate something bad, and I said, probably, avoiding her touch and claiming I didn't want her to catch anything. I went to the store to get something for my stomach. Driving, I thought about the last few months and 2 years. She must have had an affair. I needed proof but didn't have her phone or computer passwords. We had always trusted each other's privacy. I had to find out somehow. I drove around the neighborhood but couldn't stay out too long or Catherine would worry. I stopped at the grocery store and picked up Pepto-Bismol, Dayquil, and NyQuil. When I got home, I took some Pepto and NyQuil, then went straight to my son's room. Catherine came in and asked, "Are you feeling better?" I mumbled something, undressed, and got into bed. When she touched my forehead and said, "You're not hot," I thought, how could she do this to us? She offered to make chicken noodle soup, but I told her, no, I'll just throw it up. I didn't trust her and wanted her to leave. "I'm going to bed. I'll feel better after some sleep," I said. "Okay, I'll check on you later," she replied as she left. I wasn't going to sleep. Memories of our life together flooded my mind. Meeting, marriage, kids, vacations, and graduations. I couldn't find anything to explain my suspicions. I needed proof. Lying there, I began to formulate a plan. If she cheated, I could never forgive her. Somehow, I had to find out. I got up to use the bathroom, and her phone was on the nightstand. I saw a message from CB. I made a reservation for Wednesday afternoon. A hotel reservation, I thought. I could take Wednesday afternoon off and follow her. Pretending to be sick on Saturday and Sunday, and my schedule on Monday and Tuesday minimized my contact with her. We still shared a bed, but there was no contact. It's amazing how love can turn to repulsion so quickly. On Wednesday, I left work at lunch and drove to her office. I ate a little, but my stomach was in knots. I parked where I could see her building, but remained hidden. After an hour and a half, I doubted myself. Was it an innocent message? At 2:30, I saw her boss leave alone, increasing my doubts. 15 minutes later, Catherine left. I followed her to a motel where she parked next to her boss's car. I parked out of sight and watched as she walked to a room, greeted by Carl. I took a picture as the door closed. My suspicions were true. She would pay for this. I drove home furious. Caitlin was at softball practice, giving me time to plan my next move. We lived on the outskirts of town and bought our house for its room to build a 2-car garage with a finished room upstairs, my man cave. I installed a hoist to work on cars and even had a bed upstairs for when I was in the doghouse, which I called my garage. When I got home, I moved my clothes and toiletries to the man cave, anticipating Catherine's return. She came home at 5:30, and I was watching TV, ignoring her. She asked about Caitlin, and I said she was probably out with friends. Catherine then suggested we have an evening together, hinting she wanted something from me. I played along, and we went to the bedroom. As she came out of the bathroom, I saw her as the 42-year-old woman she had become. To cope, I closed my eyes and thought of younger women. I opened the nightstand drawer, and she asked what I was doing. "Putting on protection," I said calmly, suggesting I didn't trust her. She exploded, accusing me of being a failure and not asking for a raise in 8 years. She had lost respect for me. I dressed and left for the doghouse, with her yelling for me to come down and face her. I called the police, anticipating her rage. She pounded on the door, screaming obscenities. After it got quiet, I smelled something unusual and saw my workshop on fire. Catherine was outside, smiling. I escaped through a window and twisted my ankle, jumping down. As I crawled away, she continued shouting insults until the police arrived. One officer called for a fire truck, while another subdued and handcuffed Catherine, who screamed, "Take it away, you a-holes! Your precious doghouse is going to burn down!" The officer put her in the patrol car and asked me what happened. I told him a simplified version of the evening's events. We were both taken to the police station, where I gave a statement. Catherine was arrested for arson and possible attempted liquidation. I asked about a restraining order, and the officer advised me to talk to a lawyer. I called my lawyer, who referred me to a criminal defense attorney. The next day, I got a restraining order preventing Catherine from coming within 500 feet of our home, my workplace, or me. She was still in jail until her arraignment hearing. Irish luck was on my side. That night, I told Kevin and Caitlin what happened. Caitlin wasn't surprised by her mom's actions, having seen her anger before. She hugged me after I apologized. Kevin was furious, but would eventually get over it. The next day, I filed for divorce. When I returned home, a police car was in the driveway. Catherine was allowed to collect her things under supervision. She had posted bail, likely with her lover's help. The weekend was spent dealing with the wreckage of my garage. I salvaged some tools, but my diagnostic equipment was ruined. My insurance agent couldn't confirm coverage due to Catherine's co-ownership. Reflecting on our life, I realized trust was broken beyond repair. I needed to understand why. Was Carl the first? Had I done something wrong? Her yelling indicated she didn't respect me. Did their conversations lead to this? Was Carl belittling me too? I researched Carl Benson online. He was hired 2 years ago as a general manager at my wife's company, around the time she started acting differently. I learned Carl was divorced with 3 kids and lived an hour away. I planned to contact my wife's boss, whom I knew from company events and car services at my shop. I would call him Monday. Sunday night, Catherine called, apologizing for setting the garage on fire. I responded, "So what?" she asked. "Can I go home then?" "No, I have a restraining order," I replied. "Mom and Dad bailed me out. They're not thrilled," she said. "Neither am I," I retorted. "Can we talk and work it out?" she asked. "No, there's nothing to solve," I replied firmly. "Kurt, you know I love you. It's just my temper," she pleaded. "No, I don't know if you love me. If you did, you wouldn't be sleeping with your boss," I countered. "That's not true," she said defensively. "What's not true? That I don't know if you love me, or that you're sleeping with your boss?" I questioned. "Both," she replied. "Catherine, I saw you with him at the motel. Don't deny it," I accused. She gasped. "Why?" I asked, pressing further. "It was a mistake, a one-time thing," she claimed. "Nonsense, Catherine. I'm tired of your lies," I said, hanging up and turning off my phone. Half an hour later, her father, who was like a second father to me, knocked on my door. I could see the confusion on his face. "What did she tell you?" I asked. "That you had a fight and you kicked her out," he replied. I shook my head. "So how did she explain being in jail?" I asked. "She said she was burning your car repair manuals in the garage, and it got out of hand," he answered. I shook my head again. "You need to get the truth from her," I told him. "Are you going to tell me the truth?" he asked. "I don't think you want to hear it, Mr. O'Brien," I replied. "Why the formalities?" "You know I consider you my son," he said. "Because soon we won't have that relationship. You'll probably hate me," I explained. "Is it really that bad?" he asked hesitantly. I nodded, and he understood. No father wants to think about his daughter doing such things. He nodded, turned, and left. A few hours later, he texted me, "I'm sorry." She must have confessed. I'm sure there were heated arguments at their house, maybe even a visit to the confessional. When I called her boss, he recognized my name immediately. "Kurt, how are you? What's up?" "I'm sorry, sir, but this isn't a pleasant call," I began. "Oh?" he said, waiting. "My wife and I are getting a divorce because she was having an affair with Carl Benson," I stated. "Oh, crap," he said. "I knew I should have trusted my instincts. I should have checked him out more thoroughly." "It's not your fault. They're both adults," I reassured him. "Kurt, give me until the end of the week. I can't change the past, but I can address this," he offered. "Sir, if you fire Catherine, it will hurt me financially in the divorce. I'd appreciate your help with that," I requested. "She's always done a great job for me, so yes, I'll keep her," he agreed. I thanked him, and we ended the call. He was a good guy, and keeping Catherine employed would help me. The divorce papers were served to her at work discreetly. She called me immediately, starting with, "You goddamn prick." I hung up. Being a mechanic, I knew a lot about cars. I had never used that knowledge maliciously, but Carl Benson's Lexus was about to need a new engine. Friday was not good for Carl. He was late because his car broke down. When he arrived at work, the owner fired him for unbecoming behavior. Catherine called again. "What did you do?" she demanded. "What are you talking about?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "You know exactly what I mean," she snapped. "Catherine, talk to our lawyers. Don't call me again." I hung up. She tried calling back, but I ignored it. My revenge on Carl wasn't over. I contacted his ex-wife and explained my situation. She was eager to help. Saturday night, I made reservations at our favorite restaurant and invited Kevin and Caitlin. I wanted Catherine, and by extension Carl, to find out about it. The 3 of us arrived before Carl's ex, Molly, as planned. There were 4 place settings, so my kids thought their mom would join us. When Molly arrived, I introduced her to Kevin and Caitlin, explaining she was Carl Benson's ex-wife and wanted to share her story. Molly recounted her divorce, forgiving Carl once for infidelity, but ending things when he cheated again. She emphasized that trust is crucial in any relationship and that without it, there's no foundation to build on. She explained that my divorce wasn't because I didn't love their mom, but because trust was broken. By the end of dinner, we all talked openly. Caitlin admitted she'd suspected something was wrong for a year. After dinner, Caitlin asked if I was going home. I said, "I'm asking Molly to the dance if she's up for it." Molly nodded, and we danced until 11 o'clock. I drove her to her hotel, but declined her invitation to her room, feeling it was too soon. We agreed to have breakfast together the next day. At breakfast, the waitress, Heather, was surprised to see me with someone other than Catherine. I introduced Molly, and we had a hearty meal. Knowing gossip would spread, I knew Catherine would find out. We spent the day together before Molly left. She told me to reach out if I wanted to spend more time together. Catherine did find out and called me, accusing me of seeing other women. I told her we were getting a divorce and her actions wouldn't stop it. She finally signed the papers after talking to her father. At Caitlin's graduation, I saw Catherine for the first time since our split. She looked older and had lost weight. She asked if I was still seeing Carl's ex, implying we were together. I told her Molly was amazing. When I asked where Carl was, she said he was fired and moved out of state. I responded that she didn't love me enough and walked away, hearing her break down and her mother call me an a-hole. The open house was scheduled for the following Saturday at our home. Despite the pending divorce, Catherine and I agreed to host it there. I let her handle the arrangements, lifting the restraining order to allow her access. It was hard seeing her in familiar settings. Molly was right. I still loved her despite hating her. After Caitlin left with her friends, I was in the kitchen taking out the trash when Catherine approached me. "Thank you for having the open house here and letting me be here," she said. "You'll always be her mother," I replied, continuing with the trash. "Kurt, can you look at me?" I stopped and looked up. "I'm sorry for what I did to us," she said, the first time she apologized for the affair. "Why did you do that?" I asked. She cried and ran out of the room, unable to answer. Months passed and our divorce progressed. Last year, Caitlin got a college acceptance letter and we took out a second mortgage to pay her tuition and help Kevin start his auto repair shop. We split the little remaining equity from selling the house with no alimony since we earned about the same. Catherine pleaded guilty to arson, received 2 years probation, and took anger management classes and therapy. When the divorce was final, Catherine asked to talk. We met at our favorite restaurant. She looked nervous but better. During dinner, she apologized again, explaining she had lost respect for me when she saw Carl as ambitious and me as stagnant. She realized my sacrifices for our children and regretted her actions. "Thank you," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't live up to your expectations." We parted with a hug, and she offered to be there if I ever needed to vent. I doubted I'd take her up on it. On the way home, I called Molly. "Are you still available?" I asked. "I'm available," she replied. "When can we meet?" I inquired. "Your place or mine?" she asked. "Yours," I replied. We had a great dinner at her house. I wanted to be honest, so I said, "Molly, I really like you. I don't know where this is going, but I want you to know I have 2 reasons. 1, you're an amazing woman. 2, I want revenge. You're my first since my wife cheated. I respect you and don't want you to feel used." "Kurt," she said, "I've realized I want you too. Part of me wants revenge as well. I never got back at Carl's other women. Let's even the score." With those words, we headed to the bedroom. An hour later, I lay there thinking about my ex, Catherine. In the early days of our relationship, I noticed her bad temper, which worsened over the years. She would lash out verbally and sometimes physically. I'm Irish and have a temper too, but I was taught never to hit back. When she got violent, I would retreat to my doghouse. This likely made her respect me even less, seeing me as weak. When she set fire to my garage with me inside, I realized I couldn't continue. I feared waking up one night with a knife in me. The betrayal and lack of trust forced me to end our marriage. I was now a free man, but uncertain if I could trust another woman fully. Molly was about revenge and regaining my pride. She was wonderful, but we couldn't build a real relationship on our shared animosity. We could be friends with benefits, but that was it. Lying together, I said, "You're amazing, Molly. You knew exactly what I needed." "You did all the work," she replied. "You're an incredible lover. I can't believe your ex looked elsewhere." "I hoped we could continue our friends with benefits relationship," I said, enjoying our time together. As I was leaving, she kissed me and said, "I hope this continues." "Me too, but I'm not ready for a serious relationship yet," I replied. Then I hesitantly asked, "Can you make sure your ex knows about us? I'll do the same." "That sounds delightful," she said, smiling slyly. "I'm sorry if I seemed vindictive, but I wanted some revenge too." I texted Catherine. Call me when you have time. Can be Monday. Nothing urgent. She called within minutes. Hey, Kurt, are you taking me up on my offer? She asked. No, I'm exhausted. Molly is very energetic, I replied. Silence followed. Then I heard her count to 10. I didn't call you, I texted. You could have called Monday, I said. I'm sorry, she replied, showing that anger management had partially worked. I wanted to discuss Caitlin's plans. Any vacations I should know about? I asked. I'll talk to her and call you back, she said. Okay, anytime. Just let me know. I hoped my casual attitude would sting. I wanted her to feel my indifference. A week later, Carl knocked on my door. I called emergency and opened the door. He burst in, yelling, "Stay away from my wife." You mean your ex-wife? She kicked you out for cheating, I replied. Stay away from Molly, he muttered. Why should I stay away from her? She's amazing, I taunted. He lost his temper and lunged at me, swinging his arms. I deflected the first blow, but let the second one land to show him the damage. A mechanic is usually in better shape than an office worker. By the time the cops arrived, we were both in rough shape, but he looked worse. They separated us, realized I made the call, and put him in the patrol car. I cleaned up and called Molly to let her know her ex-husband was in jail. I know, she said. He had the nerve to ask me to bail him out. Are you all right? A bit bruised, but he got the worst of it, I replied. I'll be right over to play nurse, she said, and hung up. About an hour later, she was taking care of me. I was glad I worked the late shift the next day and didn't have to get up until 11 o'clock. She left after a while, saying, I love the way you do it. Your tongue and fingers are magical. I wondered if I should back off. I needed to have a serious conversation with her soon. After lunch at work, I got a call from Catherine. What did you do? She asked. Well, hi to you too, I said. Yeah, hi. What did you do? What are you talking about? I played dumb. You arrested Carl? No, he arrested himself, I replied. That's not what he said, she countered. So you're taking his word over mine. Sounds about right, I said sarcastically. He's not my lover. That ended over a month ago, she insisted. Says you, I teased. Why do you have to be such a bum? She snapped. I must have had a good teacher, I replied. Are you going to drop the charges? She asked. Why would I? He broke into my apartment and attacked me, I explained. Because he'll lose his job and because I asked you to, she pleaded. You're not my wife anymore. I don't have to do anything you say, I stated. I hung up. Months after their fling, she was still trying to help him. He was charged with attack and battery and will likely spend at least 90 days in jail. He'll definitely lose his job. I just smiled when I heard that. That Thursday, I ended up at Smitty's, our old bar. When life goes downhill, familiar places can help you regain your senses. I was at a small pub table, sipping a beer, when I heard a familiar laugh, my ex. She was with her office friends, about half a dozen of them. Catherine saw me and almost stopped. She said something to her friends and they found a table far from me. However, they had to pass my table to get to the bathroom. After about 10 minutes, 2 women headed for the restroom. One stopped at my table and asked, You're Catherine's ex, right? I nodded. I've heard a lot about you, she said with a twinkle in her eye. I wasn't sure what she'd heard, but I doubted it was good. On their way back, both women stopped to talk and flirt with me. One was about 10 years younger, the other 15. Unlike guys, these women didn't seem to mind flirting with a friend's ex. I flirted back, thinking a fling with one of them would annoy my ex. Yes, I was vindictive. As they left, one woman shook my hand and slipped me a piece of paper. I waited until they were back at their table to look. It was her business card with her cell number, Shannon Lozano. I saw Catherine looking at me with sadness, quickly replaced by the familiar fury. I reflected on our relationship. I still loved her, but living with her was like living with an active volcano. I would have stayed if she hadn't cheated. Was I better off now? I didn't know. Ignorance is bliss, and I guess I was in my own bliss. I finished my beer, threw a 10 on the table, waved to the waitress, and walked out, avoiding my ex's table. I didn't want her to see the tears forming in my eyes. Late Saturday morning, I dialed Shannon's number from the business card she gave me. She answered on the third ring. Hello? She said uncertainly. Hi, Shannon. This is Kurt McCarthy. We met at the bar Thursday night, I said. Yes, I remember you. The handsome man sitting alone, drinking a beer, she responded. I blushed and replied, Yeah, that was me. I just needed to relax and think. Would you like to talk about those thoughts? She asked directly. Yeah, I think I would, I admitted. How about tonight? She suggested. Sure. How about Smitty's at 7:30? I proposed. I'll be there, she said. After hanging up, I felt nervous. What would a younger woman see in me? I hadn't dated in over 25 years. I dressed business casual, wanting to make an effort. We hit it off immediately. She was pleasant to talk to and look at. Once I felt comfortable, I asked what had been on my mind. You work with my ex, so you've probably heard bad things about me. Why would you want to date me? I asked. Before she got involved with Carl, she said things about you that intrigued and excited me, she explained. She'd been socializing with Carl for about a year before you served her with divorce papers. The affair likely started 3 months before that, she added. This matched what I knew about her changing attitude. During bachelorette parties, she mentioned being pleased with your performance, she said, looking at me with intensity. I blushed, never expecting Catherine to talk about me like that. Don't be embarrassed. If you're as good as she said, you'll be a pleasant adventure, she added. As we finished our food and drinks, the waitress brought the check. I handed her $50 and she smiled, saying, You better keep this check. You might win a prize. I looked at her puzzled. She winked and I slipped the check into my pocket. As we walked out, Shannon took my hand and softly said, Now for dessert. I was taken aback since it had been a long time since I had gone on a date. Your place or mine? She asked. I'll let you decide, I replied. I want you to be comfortable, she said. Let's go to your place. You can tell a lot about a person by seeing how they live. She jumped into my truck so I would have to bring her back for her car later. Do you think your car will be safe here for the night? I asked. Yes, she said. I took an Uber for that reason. I felt out of touch with today's reality again. When we got to my place, we rushed to the bedroom. We finally fell asleep until 10 a.m. We had lunch at Chili's and then I drove her home. She made me promise to call her for a repeat. I assured her I would. On the way home, I noticed the check from Smitty's in my wallet. The waitress had written her name and number on it. This new reality would take some getting used to. Monday after work, I went back to Smitty's, and Helen, the waitress, was there. Closer to my age, we talked for a while, and I asked, When can we go out? Since weekends were busy for her, we planned a Wednesday date, her day off. As I walked to my truck, I got a call. Hello, I said, not recognizing the number. Hello, Kurt, said a female voice. Yes, I answered. This is Bethany. I met you last Thursday night at Smitty's with Shannon. Oh yes, I remember you, I said. Shannon said she had a great time with you Saturday night. I was wondering if we could go out sometime, she suggested. Aren't I a little old for you? I asked. Not at all. I prefer older guys. They're more mature and easier to get along with, she replied. Well, sure. How about this Saturday? I proposed. Sure, she agreed. Where would you like to go? I asked. Anywhere. I'll let you decide. I'm flexible, she said. We set a date for Saturday night, and Bethany proved to be very flexible. We tried positions I never thought possible. My Wednesday date with Helen went great, too. Like Shannon and Molly, she said, I like the way you do it. Both women. On Sunday, Molly invited me over for dinner. A home-cooked meal sounded wonderful, so I said yes. After an amazing meal, we spent time working. I was beginning to really enjoy single life. Monday night, I got a call from Catherine. What the hell do you think you're doing? She asked angrily. Sitting here watching TV, I replied, playing dumb. No, I mean you, a 40-year-old man dating women 10 and 15 years younger than you. Don't you have any remorse? She demanded. You must be talking about Shannon and Bethany, I stated. Yes, of course, she confirmed. They both asked me out. Instead of being alone, I said yes. Dating has changed. I like not having to ask a woman out and face rejection. It's nice to be wanted and appreciated, I explained. Well then, stop dating the people I work with, she demanded. Why would I do that? I asked. Because I said so, she replied. I don't have to do what you say anymore. We're not married. I'll date whoever I choose, I asserted. You're only doing this to make my life harder, she accused. No, but if it does, it's a bonus. How does my dating them affect you? I asked. They whisper behind my back and say, I can't believe she let him go. They're basically calling me an idiot, she explained. I thought, if the shoe fits, but said, I'll ask them to keep our activities private. Will that help? No, just stop seeing them, she demanded again. That I won't do unless they want to. I enjoy spending time with them. They make me feel young and boost my ego, I stated. You're an a-hole, she said, hanging up. I smiled, thinking about my time with each of them. They did wonders for my ego. Wednesday, I had another pleasant evening with Helen. My life was enjoyable. Thursday night, Catherine called again. Now what? I thought. I haven't met Shannon or Bethany yet, so I haven't had a chance to talk to them, I muttered to myself. Then, answering the call, I said, "Yes. How can I help you, Catherine?" "And the waitress at Smitty's, too." "Well, she's more age-appropriate. I thought you didn't want me dating younger women," she replied. "I don't want you dating at all. I constantly have to answer questions about why I let you go," she said with annoyance. "Tell them someone else was more your style, more in line with your life aspirations," I suggested. She was quiet for a moment, then said in a low voice, "I'll just tell them I was stupid." Then she hung up. I sat back and reflected on my life. Catherine and I had some good times, but she started drifting away when Carl was hired. Maybe something was going on even then. Now, at least, she was showing remorse. I had mixed feelings. Part of me was glad she felt stupid for giving up everything we had, but another part wished things could go back to how they were. I knew that was impossible. The past couldn't be changed, and I couldn't forget or live with it. Feeling sorry for myself, I decided to go to the store for beer. As I left with a case of Shiner Bock, Shannon called. "What's up?" she asked. "I just bought a case of beer to drown my sorrows," I replied. "Can I help with that? I can try to cheer you up," she offered. "Sure, you might be just what the doctor ordered," I said. We drank a bit, and she expressed her pleasure many times. Around 2 a.m., she said, "I have to work tomorrow, so I'd better get going. Oh, and thanks for mentioning something to Catherine. But if you could keep tonight to yourself, I'd appreciate it," I requested. "She seemed a bit down earlier, but it's still hard to believe she let you go," she said. "Thank you. You've successfully relieved me of my sadness," I responded. "Anytime," she replied. And I mean anytime. Over the next year, my number of friends with benefits grew. Shannon, Bethany, Molly, and Helen all learned of my abilities and wanted to experience them. I didn't turn any of them down. Each woman was a pleasurable adventure for me. Catherine called me a strumpet, but I didn't care. I liked pleasing women, and each of them at some point said, "I like the way you do it." Catherine eventually got used to seeing or hearing about me with different women, and one day at Smitty's, she asked me out. "You know we were good together. Why not for old time's sake?" she asked. I couldn't go for it. "It wouldn't be the same. When we were together, everything I did for you was out of love. Now we'd just be using each other," I explained. "I understand," she said sorrowfully, and returned to her table. Finally, the day came when I was awarded the Napa franchise. The owner was true to his word and offered me a generous buyout. I had to take out a loan, but business was good and I wasn't worried about repayment. I had initially agreed to the deal for financial stability for Catherine and me. Now it would just be for me. That evening, I called Catherine and invited her to dinner. She agreed, and I made reservations at the best restaurant in town. I arranged for a car to pick her up and told her to dress appropriately. When she arrived, she looked radiant in a long black dress that highlighted her red hair and green eyes. I remembered why I married her. "You look amazing, Catherine," I said. "Thank you. You look very handsome in that tuxedo, too." "What's the occasion?" she asked. "I'm celebrating, and I wanted you to be the first to know," I replied. "Now I'm curious," she said. "Let's enjoy our meal first," I suggested. As we ate, our conversation grew more substantive. Finally, she asked, "What are you celebrating?" "Catherine, after we married, I worked as a mechanic. You seemed happy, but I felt stuck. When I told you about working at Napa for a flexible schedule, you blew up," I explained. "I remember," she said, lowering her gaze. "I did it for our family. It was all to make our lives better," I continued. "And I ruined it all," she said softly. "I didn't bring you here to relive bad memories. I signed the paperwork today to buy a Napa franchise with 4 stores," I revealed. She looked stunned. "This will ensure our children will have a large inheritance. They can either continue the franchise or sell it. Our grandchildren will benefit too." "I can't tell you how happy that makes me," I said. She started to cry. "I listened to Carl when he called you a failure with no ambition. I lost faith in you and ruined everything. You were a great husband, father, and lover, and I threw it all away. I'm sorry, Kurt. I hope you believe me. I'm sorry for everything I did that got us here," she said, her voice breaking. She got up from her chair, crying, and headed for the bathroom. A server followed her in. I had wanted tonight to be a celebration of future wealth for our children and grandchildren. I didn't expect my news to affect her so much. I felt sorry for her pain, but couldn't comfort her. I signaled the server for the check, knowing Catherine wouldn't want to continue the evening. When she returned, I stood and said, "I've already paid the bill. I can take you home." "Thank you. I'm sorry I ruined your evening," she said, tears still in her eyes. She cried quietly all the way home. I wanted to hug her, but couldn't risk sending the wrong message. At her apartment door, she looked at me as if inviting me in. "I'm sorry, Catherine, but we can't go back there," I said. She nodded and closed the door. The next couple of years were busy with business and many women. Word of mouth was the best advertising, and I always practiced safety. Catherine and I occasionally talked, especially about Kevin's engagement. He met Amber Williams at his store, and they quickly knew they were right for each other. On the day of the engagement party, I arrived early to help Kevin set up. We rented a room at the Sheraton and bought subs from Subway. As we finished, Catherine arrived. She still looked good after all these years. "We never had an engagement party, Kurt," she said. "No, but everyone we knew us," I replied. "Do you remember proposing to me?" she asked. "Yes, I do," I said. Sometimes I wanted to hurt her because she hurt me so much. I said I was sorry. "Can't we move on? It's been 3 years, she pleaded. "Today is about Kevin and Amber. Let's be cordial," I said. "Maybe we could be cordial from now on," she said in her usual demanding tone. Sometimes she seemed truly remorseful, and other times her old temper showed. Guests arrived, and Kevin and Amber greeted everyone. About 45 minutes in, I heard Amber call, "Mom!" I turned to see a beautiful woman in a floral sundress. She had blonde hair, deep blue eyes, and a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Dad, that's Amber's mom, Alyssa. She's very religious and not into your lifestyle," Kevin said. "Kevin, before your mother left, I was a one-woman man. I want someone I can trust," I replied. "I don't know if she'd give you a chance, but I'll introduce you," he offered. "That would be great," I said. Kevin led me to Amber and her mother. "Mrs. Williams, this is my father, Kurt." "Kevin, you can call me Mom now," Alyssa said. Catherine walked up. "As long as he doesn't forget who his real mother is," she added. Kevin introduced Catherine to Alyssa, and they hugged and started talking. I walked away to avoid giving Alyssa a bad impression of me, hoping our first conversation would be positive. I mingled with friends and family, and many of the men joked about all the women I knew. Some women were aloof, but others were friendly. While talking to a divorced woman named Charisse, Catherine approached and warned her, "You better be careful with him. You never know what you might pick up." I got angry and said to Charisse, "Don't mind her. She's just mad I'm not giving her any mercy." "Kurt, you're a creep," Catherine retorted. "You're the one interfering in my conversations. Let's just be polite and keep our distance," I replied. Then I suggested to Charisse, "Want to take a walk and talk privately?" I didn't plan to pursue anything with Charisse that day, but wanted to get away from Catherine and annoy her. Charisse and I talked for a while and then parted ways, promising to talk again. About 2 hours into the party, I introduced myself to Alyssa. "So you're the infamous Kurt," she said with slight disdain. "I don't know what you've heard, but yes, I'm Kevin's father, Kurt," I replied. "Kevin seems like a fine young man. I hope he doesn't offend my Amber," she said. "He's a fine young man. He knows what he wants and works hard for it," I said proudly. "He'll build his business and love Amber just as much." "Well, I hope he stays faithful," she said bluntly. "He will. You have nothing to worry about," I assured her. "I hope so, for Amber's sake." "It's going to be a church wedding," she added. "Promises made before God and family," I said. "Look, it seems you've heard things about me. I'd like to clear the air and give you a chance to ask questions." "I've heard so many things," she said hesitantly. "We're going to be related. We should at least talk," I pleaded. "I think so, but this isn't the right place for it," she said. "Pick a time and place and I'll make it work," I offered. "Well, I live about an hour away. Tomorrow is Sunday and I'm going to church. Pick me up after and we'll go to Cracker Barrel." She gave me her church details. For the rest of the party, we exchanged subtle glances. I was a mystery to her. As the party wound down, Catherine approached me and said, "Amber is cute, but they're moving fast. Did you know they plan to marry within a year?" "Catherine, Kevin is smart. He knows what he wants. Meeting and marrying quickly can create problems, but we knew each other for years and still divorced. Commitment determines their success. I think they're committed." She looked regretful, knowing she had broken her commitment to our marriage. It still hurt, but I needed her to remember that. Sunday morning, I woke up early, shaved, showered, dressed in a nice suit, and drove to Alyssa's church. I arrived early and found a seat about a third of the way back. The sanctuary was different from the Catholic church I grew up in. No stained glass, altar, candles, or pulpit, just a raised platform with a blank cross. I felt out of place, but was determined to see it through. As people began entering the sanctuary, they were casually chatting and holding coffee cups from nearby coffee shops. They were dressed in jeans and casual tops, making me feel overdressed in my suit. Despite this, many people greeted me warmly, making me feel welcome. I kept looking for Alyssa, wondering if I had the wrong information or if she was sick. Then the minister announced the start of the service, and I saw her singing with the praise band. During the third song, she noticed me and smiled. She had a beautiful voice. After singing, she came over and sat next to me, which I appreciated since I wasn't sure what to do. "I didn't expect you to come to the service," she said. "I feel a bit out of place, overdressed for the occasion," I replied. "That's okay. You can take off your jacket if it makes you more comfortable," she suggested. I took off my jacket and laid it on the bench. "Thank you for sitting next to me," I said. "You're my guest. Of course I would," she responded. The service was different from what I was used to, but pleasant and relaxed. Afterward, Alyssa introduced me to the minister and several others as Amber's future father-in-law. At Cracker Barrel, we started with light conversation, but as we finished our meal, she got serious. "So, Kurt, I've heard you're a womanizer and sleep around a lot. What do you have to say?" she asked directly. "What's your definition of a womanizer?" I asked. "A guy who chases women, sleeps with them, and then dumps them," she replied. "By that definition, I'm not a womanizer," I said. "So what I've been told is a lie?" she accused. "Let me explain. I was married to Catherine, who you met. We were together over 25 years. She started cheating on me with her boss, and when I confronted her, she tried to eliminate me by setting my garage on fire. After our divorce, I started dating. Catherine likely talked about my abilities in the bedroom, and women approached me out of curiosity. I didn't chase them. I just said yes. For the past 2 years, I haven't turned down any woman who asked me out. I enjoyed their company and aimed to make them feel special. If you think that's wrong, I'm sorry." She looked at me with slight suspicion and asked, "So, where do I fit in?" "Alyssa, you're a beautiful woman. Like me, you've suffered. While I chose companionship, you closed yourself off from men because of your husband's actions. I'm looking for someone who can get to know me better and maybe date me. I'm a single man wanting to find someone to share my life with exclusively. What about your ex-wife? Didn't she want to get back together? Forgiving is possible, but forgetting isn't. You can't forget what they did. You lose trust in them, and without trust, there can't be a relationship." "I understand," she said. "My ex wanted me to look past it and stay married, but I couldn't. My self-esteem took a hit, and I wasn't going to let any man hurt me like that again." "We're similar in that way," I said. "I spent time with women, but never let them get close to me emotionally." She looked at me and nodded slightly. Then she repeated, "So where am I in all this?" "Well, we both have trust issues, but I'd like to get to know you better and see if there's a future for us," I said. "What about the other women?" she asked. "If we feel there's potential, I'd be happy to be exclusive with you," I replied. "Let me be upfront. I'm not doing anything until I'm married. If we're going to date, you need to understand that." I grinned. "Alyssa, I dated Catherine in high school and waited until we were married, so I'm fine with waiting." She seemed reassured. "Kurt, I appreciate your honesty. I think I like you. Let's see where this goes." For the next 4 months, we met at least twice a week. Sometimes she came to my place and sometimes I went to hers. During this time, I still dated other women, but my interest in them waned. Charisse from the engagement party wanted more than I was willing to give. Her compliments, once boosting my ego, now started to bother me. One night at dinner, Alyssa told me she was ready to commit. I was overjoyed. "That makes me the happiest man on earth. I'm committing myself only to you. Honestly, the last 4 months have been meaningless when I wasn't with you. I love you." She hesitated, then said, "I think I'm falling in love with you too. Please be patient with me." I was patient both emotionally and physically. Then, one day, Catherine called. "Hi, Kurt," she said. "Hi, Catherine. How are you? What can I do for you?" "Wow, you're in a good mood." "Yes, I am. So what do you need?" I asked cheerfully. "Why don't we have dinner sometime? I have something to discuss with you." "Sure. How about tonight?" "That would be great. I'll make your favorite dish, roast beef with vegetables. Can you come over around 7? "Don't you want to go out to eat?" I asked. "No, I'd like to be alone with you." Okay, I'll see you then. Do you need anything? Maybe some wine to go with the roast beef? Okay, I'll pick something up. See you tonight. I hung up, curious but hesitant. I called Alyssa to let her know. She said, it must be about the wedding next month. She's trying to soften me up with roast beef, I said. Call me afterward and let me know, she replied. At 7 o'clock, I stood in front of Catherine's door with butterflies in my stomach. We chatted through most of dinner until she revealed the real reason she invited me. Kurt, Kevin's wedding made me think about us, she said quietly. There is no us, Catherine, I said. Ignoring me, she continued. Remember when we used to date and fool around? Yes, we were young, I said. We were good together, weren't we? Yes, we were, I agreed. What happened to us? She asked. Life, I guess, I said. I talked to Shannon at work. She said you were exactly what she needed. And Bethany said you're no longer making the rounds. Maybe you're tired of playing around. Okay, I said. Apparently neither Kevin nor Amber had told Catherine I was dating Alyssa. I smiled, thinking I appreciated their privacy. Catherine took that smile as agreement. So maybe we should try again. You know we were good together. I interrupted softly. Catherine, we were good together. But the key word is were. I need to forgive you. She smiled, but I continued. I forgive you, but I can never forget what you did. You need to move on with your life. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Oh, Kurt, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. To us. I really am. I know we can get over it. Let's try again. She wasn't giving up easily. I had to let her know it was over. I love someone else, Catherine. Bethany was right. I'm no longer playing around because I'm committed to someone. I've become a one-woman man again. She stared at me, then asked, Who is it? Alyssa, Amber's mom. Her shoulders slumped. She realized she couldn't get me back. We finished the meal in silence. As I left, I said, Catherine, thank you for dinner and the memories. I know this isn't what you wanted, but you'll find someone. Love him with all your heart. I couldn't stay mad at her anymore. Alyssa helped me forgive her, just as she forgave her ex. Their actions brought us together. Pulling away from Catherine's apartment, I called Alyssa. So, what was it? She asked. She wanted us to get back together. I thought so. She knows what she lost. Yeah, and I know what I found. Alyssa, I love you, and I'm better for it. I love you too, Kurt McCarthy, she said. It was the first time she said it out loud. I already knew she expressed her love in many ways, but it was nice to finally hear it. Kevin and Amber got married, and Alyssa and I smiled, held hands, and danced the whole time. Some joked we looked like a wedding couple. Catherine was there, but didn't stick around, likely finding it hard to see us so in love. 3 months later, we had a small private ceremony at our church. Friends and family attended, except Catherine. She claimed a scheduling conflict, but I think she just couldn't accept that I had moved on. It took her a few years, but she eventually found someone too. I hoped they'd last a long time. On our wedding night, Alyssa said the magic words, I love the way you do it. This time the emphasis was on love,